Dopamine swipe, dopamine swipe. Followers, likes, double tap. Now they control your life.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the 817 podcast, where we talk everything politics, news, business, entrepreneurship, trends, culture in the city of Fort Worth and Tarrant County. And if you think we're depressing usually, you might just want to go ahead and turn it off today.
Yeah. But hopefully all of y'all are doing well too. I know I feel like the last time I felt positive was the night before election, which was vinyl night.
Yeah.
That was pretty awesome.
And that was a great time.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for showing up. I mean, it was cool. There's probably 40, 50 people that came through.
Yeah, it was awesome. And just the kind of support and the respect. I mean, the people who showed up were also just, movers and shakers. That's, to me, it was always a thought that the people who listened to the pod were people who were doing something. But it was cool to see people show up and like, wow, you listened to the pod?
And people that we have no idea that listen to the pod.
Exactly. Yeah. It was just like really cool. What was your kind of favorite moment of the vinyl night? Like you were like, oh, this is any of it was like, oh wow, our pod matters.
I mean, I think it was cool just to have people show up on a rainy Monday night to hang out and just see people crossing connections, getting to know each other. It was a really cool thing to see the little community that there is around it.
Yeah. It was cool to see a lot of the leadership Fort Worth people. And it was cool to see, the Black Coffee squad come out. It was cool to see, a lot of cool people were there. And I know I'm, missing some people, but it was awesome. And thank you, Hotel Dryce, for allowing us to do that.
Yeah.
And that was cool. Economic development team. There's another one. They were good too. So let's okay. Positive over. Let's go dive in. Let's dive in to the rest of the situation here. We're going to start with the stockyards. Jimmy, go ahead and bring us home.
Yeah, first our little update section, and that's that the stockyard zoning story that we have covered recently is now moving to city council. So the zoning commission voted 5-3 to recommend the request to ban multifamily developments in areas of the stockyards. So now city council make the final decision at its December 13th meeting. We shared a lot of thoughts about that last time, but just the update here is that it was a 5-3 vote to move forward. So now city council is going to hear it on December 13th. Anything you want to add?
I guess what's funny, I ended up going to the stockyards after our podcast because I had that friend in town, and I was like, oh yeah, I need to at least take you to here. And I mean, that weekend he was in town, everything was dead slow. I mean, everything. Even Deep Ellum was slow. We went to Deep Ellum one week in Dallas. I was like, okay, maybe it's just a thing after Halloween. Things are just slow. But my God, Stockyards was popping on a Sunday at like 6:00. I'm like, and it was. What did he compare it to? He's like, this is like New Orleans with cowboy hats. It was just, people, maybe there was something going on because people were pretty slippery. Like people were like, we were on West 7th, people were slippery.
The biggest difference with New Orleans is that they have mixed use multifamily residential all around too.
And that's why it feels like a bigger city than Fort Worth, So there's that though. Second story, want to talk about the thing that the city council did vote on.
Yeah, we'll say a bad night of voting in Tarrant County was made worse when city council voted 5-4 to not add a community police advisory board, which was an initial recommendation from the Race and Culture Task Force from 4 years ago. So Chris Nettles brought forward the proposal to create the board, and after more than an hour of back and forth and final statements, it went to a 5-4 vote against adding the Community Advisory Board. And in the same week that the Office of the Police Oversight Monitor had their head leave, it's just kind of feeling like everything from the Race and Culture Task Force 4 years ago is gone, going away, walking out the door.
And I think it's important to name who voted where. So you had Chris Nettles, Jared Williams, Gina Bivens, Elizabeth Beck voted for the Oversight Board. You had Michael Crane, Carlos Flores, Firestone, the new guy, Blaylock, and then Maddie Parker, right? So let's be clear. What I want to just say on that front there, everyone can't say partisan politics, but bipartisan politics isn't in the city or whatever. That's pretty close to Democrats voted one way, Republicans voted the other. Carlos Flores is the only one who you can say, I think, legitimately hops back and forth on things around his political. He's the confusing one to me because it says he's a Democrat, but I've always thought he was a Republican.
Yeah.
But hey, so I think that part's important there.
And many who spoke against the board argued it would be duplicating efforts already undertaken by the police monitor's office. But then the president of the North Fort Worth Alliance, Russell Fuller, who was kind of one of the spokesmen for that, also says that the Office of Police Oversight Monitor has been in place 1 year and is reporting success in resolving citizens' complaints pertaining to Fort Worth PD. So you're telling me that the office we put in place is successful. We want to continue adding resources to try and make it more successful, but because you've already kind of had some success, we don't need to continue doing that. That doesn't make any sense. We're talking about constantly about police are too busy. We need to take stuff off of their plate. We're trying to do that with the police oversight monitor. Who is trying to create alternative methods and ways of policing, provide more resources to them. We're trying to add something that would continue allowing for that. You're saying, no, we did one thing, we're good. It just doesn't make any sense. You have something you're saying is successful, and instead of trying to continue doing it, you're going to do something that is not successful. It's just the mental gymnastics don't make any sense.
Yeah. I always have a hard feeling about the police stuff, and it's just not the battle for me. For me, I don't get passionate about the battle, and I guess a part of the reason why I don't get passionate about the battle is because I feel like a lot of the things that awfully happen with police officers across the country is also the shark in the water. And I say that from a point of what they don't want us to talk about is that, right? You heard me say this throughout the years. What they don't want us to talk about is the 5x more wealth that a white family has compared to a black family. They want us to spend our time fighting all over for an oversight board for police. 98% of black entrepreneurs don't have one full-time employee. These are real things that I feel like systemically impacts all of us, which if we're able to get more equity and capital and make more money, we then can have the powers to then these side effects of the systemic issue of wealth and inequality, to me, starts with economics. And I oftentimes think that's also why I'm starting to think now, I know we're getting too early into the election stuff, but Texas, I feel like Republican Texas's points hit the average voter, where like the Democrats' points, you just got, unfortunately, not everyone's good people and have a lot of empathy for other people, but so it doesn't hit the other person. And it's not a lot of what's in it for me, affordable housing, police, oversight stuff, kind of like that. And I think it's often a battle, but so it's not like, to me, like, I'm such a negative Nancy that even if this did get passed, would they even, I think if anything says task force anymore, let's just call it, I'm tired of task force, let's all just let's force our way into power and act really hard.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my take on it.
Well, with that, let's move into the big story, which is a
big problem. Big problem.
Yeah. It's the election results. Things didn't go the Democrats' way in Texas, although nationally it did, and that's something that we're going to talk about. But first, we're just going to start with results, and we're going to start with results in Tarrant County. So it, mirrored the statewide results, was a little bit closer here than statewide, but we're just going to focus on the Tarrant County results for now. And not a lot of surprises. Kay Granger won with 59% of the vote. I will say that, that's definitely closer than I thought it would be, given Hunt was not anywhere close to as well funded. So I don't know, maybe next time Kay Granger might be on upset alert.
You think she'll still run? I guess, it's only 2 years?
Isn't it 6 years?
So you think, okay, if it's 6, you think Kay's running again?
I mean, what's his name in Kansas just got reelected at 89. So, I mean, I feel like the number of House members that just do it till they die is a lot higher than Senate members.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
Mark Veazey is the other, more notable of our U.S. reps that won re-election. Jasmine Crockett who is a Democrat, won District 30. Roger Williams was running unopposed. Beth Van Dyne didn't really have too much of a competition. She won.
Election denier.
Yep. Jake Elzy, who had run for District 6 after the passing of the previous representative and lost, but now that they had gotten redrawn, it was a new district, and he ran unopposed in that and won. And then Governor Greg Abbott has turned Tarrant County back red with 51% of the vote. And then things got a little bit closer. Dan Patrick beat Mike Collier by 2 percentage points. Ken Paxton beat Rochelle Garza by about 3. And then everything else went a little bit more down party lines. Glenn Hegar, Don Buckingham, Sid Miller, Wayne Christian, all of the state Republicans won their re-election from Tarrant County and statewide. What stands out to you about the statewide elections?
Kind of, for me, I kind of really worked on a list here of how was I going to kind of break this down. I mean, one that's like you just mentioned, first time turning the Republicans won the vote since like Beto, Cruz, Joe Biden, Trump. So that was, that was big. Tarrant County was 47% to like 36%. Like 30, it was super low for state.
Mm-hmm.
So that's there. Honestly, we are the one, like, I was almost thinking the title of this pod was like, is Texas its own country? And is Fort Worth the capital? That was kind of like, it's just like,
if Texas did become its own country,
yeah,
I think
you're right.
Yeah.
Like, we're the largest metro, and the largest metro that carries this old Texas views. And so that was kind of my take. What about yours?
I agree with you. And I think, and something as we can like compare nationally to Texas, is that election deniers nationally did not fare well at all. And especially in close swing states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, like they really got blown out. But that is not the case for Texas and Tarrant County especially. And I think I see it most in the Dan Patrick, Mike Collier vote and how that really did not differ much at all from Abbott, Beto, only 2 points, even though we had top Republicans in Tarrant County saying, don't vote for this guy, vote for Mike Collier. And so if you have actual, like, rational people working towards the betterment of the state, supporting somebody across the aisle saying, no, I know that they're a Democrat, but they are the right person for this job, and you flipped maybe like 2,000-3,000 people, that just tells me how staunchly entrenched the MAGA culture is in Tarrant County. And that's like a disappointing thing to see. That's probably the most disappointing thing to see out of this election locally, is that people coming out with, like Mike Collier, with the support of top Republicans in the county, could barely flip anybody.
Yeah. No, that's well said. What I would love to know that we currently still don't know is the average age of voters statewide, but then also Fort Worth compared to the other cities. I mean, that would be interesting as well. It definitely showed that there was a lot of Republicans who also didn't vote. And to me, it looked like chicken shit. Because in the sense of, that Ken Paxton is a criminal. That all your high leaders with any soul is picking Collier. And you decide, you knew it was ugly, and you just decided, oh, I'm not going to vote. Like that was to me clear, where, like, especially in like the Gen X category, like, they were kind of like, oh yeah, I'm just too busy. Like, it was, like something to not look at, and I don't want to fix the wound.
Yeah.
Because doing that is just too much. That's what I feel like also happened. And then the reason why age is so big is, like, if anything, like, that's a real issue in politics. It's like the age gap of, like, who votes and who lives and works hard in America. If the average retirement age is 62, I mean, that's like what it was in 2018, but, like, you're having a bunch of people who don't work deciding how the country works for those of us who do. And it goes even to more, which is, I feel like this is right? The average white common age person is 58 to 60. The average black is late 20s, early 30s. And then Hispanics is 11, and then you go into, kids under 15. The majority of them are minorities. And what's crazy is Florida and Texas is is a majority minority states. And it's just like, we're so, it's just so crazy how places like Kansas, are waking up a little bit better than Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, the Koch brothers own the state of Texas, the state of Kansas. So it's just like, it's interesting. So I think the age gap, and with the age gap, there's a race gap, and then that's a big issue as well.
Yeah. And nationally, like, young voters showed up, but in Texas and Florida, young voters didn't show up. And I think there's a lot to question, like, why is that? I'm honestly surprised at how poorly Beto fared. I know I said last week that I thought Beto was going to lose by double digits. So I'm not surprised in that, but that was with the perspective of early voting and early voting turnout and how low it was. I mean, I think that he, again, ran a really energizing campaign. Like, I mean, he's just everywhere. It's insane how many people he talks to and connects with.
Inspiring.
And, I mean, one of the best funded Texas races of all time. Actually, I think the best funded Texas race of all time, and couldn't get people out to vote.
Yeah.
And I think that we can point to a lot of the policies that kept people home, made it harder to vote since 2020, potential nervousness at voter intimidation, people watching the polls. I think that it's not just one thing. There's plenty that we can look at and try and figure out why Texas did not show up to vote. But I think that in general, it seems like Texans are pretty fueled by hate, and people hate Ted Cruz, people hate Donald Trump, and because Greg Abbott isn't as big of a showman about it as they are, they don't hate Greg Abbott as much.
Yeah.
And so it didn't show up to cast that hate vote.
But they also hate Beto, right?
True.
So it's like, I think something like I learned, or I feel like needs to happen next, and this is maybe, going to national example, is I think one of the things that really hurts Beto is that he did try to run for president, and that run, he had to get super progressive. Like, he was able to get a little bit more freer, but then they just had too much on tape of things that I think scare a lot of older people in Texas. And you also saw that happen to Stacey Abrams. She became the villain.
Yeah.
And nationally, Stacey Abrams, like the Beyonce of politics. We but she couldn't win.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think when you create magic, Beto Cruz, Georgia flipping blue, what sure doesn't work is thinking you can do it again.
Right.
Like, just give it 4 years, 6 years, like, leave like an icon, and like maybe come and figure it out a little later. Like, rather than try to use the momentum. Using the momentum doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, let's hit the Tim O'Hare and the People's race.
So Tim O'Hare fared better than Greg Abbott in Tarrant County at 53% of the vote. It beat Deborah Peoples by 6 points. And then a couple of the other ones, criminal district attorney again fell basically in the same boat of Phil Sorrells beating Tiffany Burks. And then for some of the courts, I mean, I think one of the more significant ones was Democrat Alyssa Simmons holding off Republican Andy Nguyen for Precinct 2. And then the other ones, the other county commissioner seat Manny Ramirez becomes the first Latino to be elected to the county commissioner's court. Although Manny Ramirez is a Twitter troll, reply guy.
And an extra at the Fast and Furious 11. Like he's huge.
Yeah. What's your take on O'Hare Peoples?
Well, let me first kind of again, Tarrant County, 47% of the registered voters cast a ballot compared to the 31%, so even worse than 36. 31% of the state showed up to vote. That is crazy. And voter turnout wasn't as big as 2018. But like we know, like Trump and all that, and that fueled. I was reading the O'Hare speech, and a journalist asked him, like, what are you going to do to make Tarrant inclusive? And he attacked a person and said, it's people like you is a reason why people are in the fight for the first place. And he's like, I love God, freedom, guns, the classic like thing that he does. I love God, I love my family, I love my country. I love my country. I guess he said that one twice. And he said, ultimately, I'm not going to be able to bring every single human being together. We're at a very difficult divide political time, and young people and you people don't help us. That's the quote. So to me, it's just scary that people think that one's language is bad, but then other language is okay and he's proven to be that as a city council member at Farmers Branch, as the mayor of Farmers Branch, trying to make English the proper language. I think Tim O'Hare does so well because he knows how to say one language is bad and this is the operating language of the people in Texas. That's probably what really gets him there. And people love cops. That's the other thing. Tarrant County loves our cops.
Yeah.
That's probably my full take on just seeing it is that. But I want him to know, like Tim O'Hare, like I want people to know, like, you're really holding on to a pass, right? Texas is becoming less religious. It's just true. By the time you and I are Kay Granger's age, there'll be more anti religious people than religious people. And that's just, what it is. The Asian vote, right? Asians, by the time you and I are Kay Granger's age, there will be as many Asians in America as Black Americans. Like the world's changing, O'Hare, and everyone who's voting to keep it the way it is. And so I think ultimately, like, we who are changing it just have to make sure we understand that once we get comfortable and we make it, that we don't start acting like retired old people today. That we lose our scope. Because, heck, I'm a millennial and I feel like I lost my scope with these Gen Zers. They came out and vote. Kudos to the Gen Zers. What is your take?
I'm a little less long-term optimistic than you. Because I think, a stat that you've pointed out a couple of times is how few purple states there are, like the number of states run by one legislature. And I think that people are trying to flock to their own, especially in like more polarizing places like this. Like, I think when we look at Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, those states, you can see how these two sides coexist, right? But here I just don't think you can, and I imagine that Tim O'Hare will want to continue pushing Tarrant County as this red stronghold of strong core Christian values. And I think that people who are in the, Dallas, maybe getting frustrated with Austin, Houston, might continue to look at Tarrant County suburbs and be like, yeah, like that's where we can, go to our mega church and have our pastor bring a fraud constitutional lawyer up on stage and tell us that what we're doing is okay.
Which, by the way, I'm starting to convince, because another data statistic is that just came out. I have a friend who's a pastor, and he was talking about this new data around the lack of people showing up to church. So I'm like, there's another example. I'm actually, you want to talk about an investigation I'd be curious about? How does churches have so money when attendance is getting lower? And so there has to be some GOP campaigning on the back end of churches so that they just spit this narrative. Like, that's the new fund. Your new funder is not your people in your pews. It's the new funder is the political campaign who's giving you your dollars to actually stay the lights on. Like, it just is not making sense of how this is surviving long term. And so I also think a lot of the reaction of why they're doing it is sustainability and keeping their church alive. And now you're radicalizing your church by, like, that'd be interesting to see. Because let's be clear, and a lot of the feedback I've heard about this whole, like, churches doing the illegal things, where they're like, well, black churches are doing it the same thing. The gentleman who, this kind of happened with the gentleman who says, we need a runner, not a walker, and he was preaching at his church. So it's interesting, but the Tim O'Hare stuff is looking like he's going to double click on it. Yeah.
And, we'll obviously see as to how much he can actually do, like Glenn Whitley, nobody talked about until it came to COVID and it came time for him to be making a lot of these decisions around opening, closing, how we can operate, etc. So
they really do have little power.
Yeah, like they've got to bring a number of people along with them to make things happen. But it does say something that he outperformed Greg Abbott here and how he is able to mobilize people.
Wow, did you just hear that?
Thunder.
We got thunder
Wow.
this Friday morning.
So yeah, that's Tim O'Hare. But
Sorry, I got a notification. I thought it was my B-reel. So it's like, would have been perfect time.
Yeah. But a
lot of people still don't know what B-reel is.
That's true.
That's like a really true thing.
I enjoy it. It's
I
chill.
love B-reel.
It's super simple.
Oh yeah. It's rad.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. For those of us who don't know what B-reel is, B-reel is a new social app that the kids use where it's all about being real. So it's like Instagram back in the day.
It's the early days of IG before Facebook bought it.
But instead of like using like glamorous photos, B-reel is about being real. So they surprise you when you are able to post. So like you get a notification and you have 2 minutes to post, and you post, and then when you do it, you can't like get all set up and create a cute scene because they take a post of both sides, the front camera and the back camera at the same time. It's because they want your real environment. And it's just really cool how it's like getting to keep up with people in a less pixie and high toxic way. And Gen Z is really seeming to love it. It was the number one social app downloaded for a long time. But yeah, so if you didn't know what B-reel is,
now you know.
You know who doesn't know what B-reel is? The people who vote for this country.
Yeah. They don't know what is real, that's for sure.
Yeah. So
do you want to move to talking a little more about nationally? Or where do you want to go next?
I think it's important to kind of hit some numbers that we saw on Twitter that I also think's like this idea that we're like becoming more progressive, like going back to what you were saying, like I'm not as positive or starry-eyed, is what Evan Smith posted on Twitter around kind of Texas counties that Democrats won throughout kind of voting since Obama. So Obama in 2008 won 28 Texas counties, 26 in 2012. Hillary Clinton won 27 in 2016. Beto O'Rourke won 32 in 2018. Joe Biden won 22 in 2020. And Beto O'Rourke won 19 in 2022. That to me was like the most depressing statistic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it felt like everyone was excited, and the people who held on, which a lot of people are giving shout out to young Latino voters.
Yeah.
Like that's probably a highlight there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the one I really wanted to hit for people. But besides that, I mean, we can
Yeah,
move to
I think the
national.
other thing is that the congressional seats in Texas that voted for Biden in 2020 stayed blue. So even after redistricting and what the state looks like now as far as districts, congressional seats stayed the same. And I think that's a positive to take out of it. Like you said, Texas Latinos overwhelmingly voted for Democratic and progressive candidates. The next step is, how do we get more of them to turn out to vote? Because a lot of that was offset by suburban white women who voted for Beto in 2018, Biden in 2020, flipping back to voting for the Republicans in this election.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think the biggest thing, like, with Latino voters is figuring out how we get people in Texas to vote. Like 31% is really bad.
Yeah. But that goes back to like the other kind of argument of like if you know, and the reason why I'm bringing up all this data and I'm happy to put it into the show notes is because I just did a DEI keynote at Kroger in Atlanta, like the headquarters in Atlanta. And so we were just talking about, it was literally the next day after the election. And so we were just talking about all this and talking about the changes of their communities. And if the Hispanic age is 11, you kind of also got a lot of, you know, time until they can vote.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of the other issue there too.
That's a whole nother...
Because their parents probably can't vote, you know?
Yeah.
Like for a lot of my Latino friends in San Antonio or you know, RGV area, you know, that's kind of a thing.
I mean, that's a whole...
And it sounds like Castaway outside right now.
That
on
means
this Friday morning.
We're two governor cycles away from the majority of Latinos being able to vote.
Yeah. Yeah. And with the majority of Gen Z being Hispanic in Texas, that is still true though. So there's still a big leap of these kids who are going to turn 18 in 4 years. But yeah, we're still far away. But you know, a lot of my other points are national. So we could move the national, because I'm trying to talk about like optimism and vision and like the purpose of stuff. So I could do that in the national. Because the national was actually promising.
Yeah, the red wave definitely did not happen. You brought up Stephen Colbert's point that it looked more like a pink stain when you wash your MAGA hat with a white shirt.
No, with your Klan outfit.
With your Klan outfit, yeah. And that might even be generous.
And speaking of waves did happen, but they were red and blue. So states that had, like Texas, like Florida, like Pennsylvania, like Michigan, they either got bluer or red or more red. And let's be clear, the Democrat ones actually got more of a stronger wave than the red ones did.
And
So that's
And even with Florida, like, as somebody who has grown up having to see Charlie Crist on a ballot to vote for or against, like, Charlie Crist is a terrible candidate. How, like, the Florida Democrats voted for him in a primary is insane to me. There was no doubt to me that DeSantis was going to win by double digits because nobody wants to vote for Charlie Crist. Like, he is basically the Dr. Oz of the Democratic Party. Like, that was not going to happen. And speaking of, like, trying to run off of momentum, like, that's somebody who I think the momentum is overstated because
Big facts.
Nobody likes Charlie Crist.
Yeah, people are saying, well, I'm okay with this, though. Because I want DeSantis to play it up because I want people to not continue with Trump MAGA Republicans. So please use it. But, yeah, DeSantis is getting a lot of love right now. He's looking like people think he's like the next, like he's that guy.
Yeah.
But I also realized, by the way, I just realized with the Pennsylvania and Fetterman winning, where you steal your swag from. I was like, wow, Fetterman and Jimmy have the same style.
We do.
You just show up in basketball shorts and a hoodie.
That's right, we do.
I was like,
and I love at his like victory speech how his whole family is wearing that too.
Yeah.
But nationally, this was the best election for a sitting president's party in 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, like you have 2002, but obviously with 9/11, like there was a lot going on there to support Bush and like the America First movement. But even still, this midterm election for Democrats was exactly what they needed and could have hoped for. I think realistically, based on the people that I've followed, and this might even be resolved by the time the pod is published, like I think that the Democrat Senate will win Nevada, and then I think
that's crazy.
I think Warnock's going to win. I think the Dems will be at 51 in the Senate. I think Republicans will be at either 218 or 220 in the House, which causes a lot of chaos.
Yeah.
Like, you've got no votes to spare. You've got to pander to every single person. And Nancy Pelosi has had to do a good bit of that in the past 2 years as well.
And that let's that you just sparked the Nevada thing would be crazy amazing because Nevada's actually looking like they lost their mind. And I mean, I think the person who won, who's in charge of the voting situation, is a legit election denier. I know there was one running in Nevada and Arizona, but why I believe the Georgia one is because, like Stacey Abrams, like Beto, like Trump, Herschel Walker, people is people hate him, right?
Yeah.
And so Warnock. So I think a lot of Warnock's tie here was because Stacey Abrams was on it, and people are like, in Georgia, Stacey Abrams the devil,
right? And for a lot of people, the only reason they voted for Walker was because they were showing up to vote for Brian Kemp or against Stacey Abrams.
Exactly. So now that that's not there, Georgia has to vote all the time. I can't imagine. You think how annoyed you are by text messages in a red wave state? You imagine if you were the state that matters every year?
Yeah.
Gosh, your door probably gets knocked on like every day. You're like, gosh, it's wild. But go ahead, let's get into it.
Yeah, I mean, some of the big ones like Fetterman beat Oz, but then even further than that, Democratic governor in Pennsylvania beat Fetterman, I believe. Like, he outpaced Fetterman votes wise. Wisconsin's an interesting one because they, first time in forever, Democratic governor, Democratic Secretary of State.
I thought the governor was incumbent, actually, and he held on.
Yes, but they down ballot. They flipped the entire state legislature blue.
That's awesome.
But not the Senate seat. which
Yeah.
is very interesting.
But it was close.
But it was very close.
It was very close. I mean,
against an incumbent senator. They're on upset alert next time.
yeah, you know how, but kudos to Wisconsin. I've been to Wisconsin. Like, and I'm talking about, I've been to Marinette, Wisconsin. Like a place where it feels like making a murderer is getting made again. Like, and kudos, because Wisconsin is not diverse. I mean, it is diverse in Milwaukee and like their places, but kudos to Wisconsin, which also shows like the young people voting, right? And really young white people under 30 voting was a huge leap.
I mean, Gen Z under 30. I fit that category for like 2 more weeks, so I'm still I still count in the good guys.
Yeah.
I mean, it broke like plus 30 for Democrats.
Yeah.
Just like an insane number. I mean, for Fetterman, it broke like plus in the 40s.
Yeah.
And Fetterman's a be real guy,
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of it.
Yeah.
But overall, nationally,
I'm really ready for him to wear the clothes though. Like I like this hoodie thing. It just it's okay. Like, okay, you wore it up to this point, but please show up to DC with a. I
mean, surely he's going to show up to DC in a suit, but like we don't. I don't think we should be gatekeeping people over clothing.
I agree. He just looks like he could be the, what did Colbert say? The chat, he's like the chat room bouncer.
Yeah.
It started to look not sanitary. Maybe that's the thing. Like,
okay.
hey,
you can wear a hoodie, but it can't be stained.
Yeah. It looks like he like spills Oreos on it and then, Cheeto hands. It just looks crusty.
But after redistricting, there were a ton of seats that Republicans expected to win easily, and it just hasn't happened. Like, I expected Republicans to walk away from this with a 25 to 45 seat advantage in the House, and to see that at most be like 5, that's wild.
And here's what's important to note. So when there's a sitting president, and during their term, and let Jimmy tell me if I'm getting this wrong, but it's only been 3 times where the party majority, if it matches the president, where it stays and like they hold the House.
Right.
So like and so that's why everyone, like, so if you're all proud, like, or if your Republican friends are like, yeah, Republicans are back, we're like the majority of the House, and this, that, and the third, like, this always happens.
Yes. Yeah.
With Trump, we took 41, where, like Jimmy just said, while Biden's here, we took 5. Which, what is your take on that, by the way, Jimmy? Like, Joe Biden now thinking he actually is a Trump killer. Because my boy walking around with a little new swag these days.
I mean, I think that Joe Biden's first 2 years have been some of the most successful in any presidential term in the history of the country.
Here's what I want you, dude. We're at 51 minutes right now, but I feel like this is such an important topic because here's the thing. I need you, because all of us are about to go to Thanksgiving. We're about to go to Christmas. And what you just said right now, my family would roundhouse and be like, you're tripping. So can you give me my 3-point plan? So when I need to have the discussion with people, what is it? Can you give it to me?
If you want a resource to just have in front of you, go follow the account on Twitter, What Has Biden Done? They do a great job of, just keeping up with what has Biden done. But like, biggest thing, number 1, is the infrastructure bill. And your family can't hate on that because all of the people they support are now touting the money that we're getting from the infrastructure bill. Like, all of the communities that are being impacted by the money set forth in the infrastructure bill are benefiting from it. And their politicians see that and are playing to that. And they're like, yeah, we're benefiting from this. Like, look at this money we have to build this highway from Lubbock up to South Dakota or whatever. So, I mean, that's number one. And that's just not an arguable thing because the people they support also support this. You know, you could go into student debt. I'm sure that your family members might have something to say about that the other way, but they are wrong on it. So that might not be one worth bringing up. But inflation has continued to come down. I think by like the spring, we're going to be looking at inflation around like 4%. Like next summer, like we're going to kind of be back to normal. And that's...
Okay, keep going.
That's not because of what the Fed is doing. Like, that's because of the Inflation Reduction Act. That's because of chips bringing jobs and manufacturing to the U.S. All the things that Republicans say that they want to do that they don't do, that Biden's out here like, yeah, look at all these companies saying they're going to invest $500 billion in building manufacturing here.
You're 100%. It's like the inflation thing, I believe... Inflation, I mean, you know, I know the customer price index stuff just came out and it was the first drop.
Well, it's been dropping almost every single month. October was a little bit higher than they expected, but it was still a drop. Yeah. So if you don't know how like inflation works, it is a 12-month rolling average of how much this consumer basket of goods has gone up. And so you have the 12-month number, which is what's usually touted. Like we have 10% inflation. That is the cumulative October. So right now it would be December 2021 plus January 22 plus February 2022 and so on. And then you have each month, which is the like actual number. So right now, a lot of the 2021 numbers were like 1 point something, 0.8, 0.9, and those are being replaced with like this month 0.2. So immediately you're getting like a 1.5 knocked off of inflation of like November 2021 being like 1.5 or something crazy, and November 2022 being 0.2. And so now we're at like 7 point something. Next month, we'll probably knock off another like half a point to full point. And we're just going to keep doing that until we get back to pretty close to a regular inflation number.
Well, what was also well articulated, by the way, but what was also, I think, the stock market had some of its biggest falls right before the election. And if you're living off of your retirement, I mean, like, you were probably like legit freaking out. So a lot of people, I think, also voted on that, like this, like, oh, that's all Biden or whatever. You know, my stock portfolio was amazing when Trump was here, and now it's really, really bad.
Yeah.
So, and to your point, inflation's also global situation. It's not just an American problem. And if you look at inflation and how the dollar's holding up and how our inflation's holding up, we're doing a great job. And the chip stuff you said, like, it's so smart. Like what people are not giving Joe Biden credit for, or, you know, and his team, is Russia and China are quote unquote biggest threats. And you can't say they're weaker today.
They're in shambles.
Yeah. And everyone is saying no more Russian oil, right? No more, you know, let's move our iPhone stuff to Vietnam. Granted, it's still at the very small level, but you can see that that's happening. And yeah, we finally have international policies and things happening.
Yeah,
because we didn't have one for a while.
Yeah, and that's why, like, you know that good things are happening when you see the opposing side throwing up arms about something at the border, trying to like make a crisis out of that, because they don't have anything else to point to. And I mean, countries saying we don't want oil from Russia anymore is the equivalent of saying we don't want to buy weapons from the U.S. anymore. You know,
Yeah.
like that would be a devastating thing to the U.S. economy.
Yeah.
So those are my like big things. If you're going to try and get into an argument at Thanksgiving or Christmas, those are things that are like
I'm going to
fact-based,
Vegas.
irrefutable.
I'm going to Vegas for Thanksgiving, so I'm not even going to try this year.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just going to Vegas.
Yeah.
Well, continue with nationals. That pretty much, I mean, national for you?
I think so. I mean, I think the big
Yeah.
story is that like there was no red wave. It purports well for 2024. We're probably going to get some infighting if Trump does actually announce next week that he is going to run versus DeSantis, and Trump's already laying the groundwork. You know, he's doing the Ted Cruz's wife gambit to DeSantis already.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's kind of the showdown of we'll see where the GOP wants to fall, which is wild because DeSantis is still a lunatic.
Yeah. And we can definitely talk more there. There's a lot of mixed parts because the minorities in Florida voted for DeSantis and the red wave there.
I mean, they blow up Latino radio.
Yeah.
With Fox News level accurate information.
Yeah. So my kind of action points that, you know, one of my kind of internal core values is think decades instead of days, and the actions that we have to take. And the optimists on the show, you know, I think it's just like consciously, these are things that I just feel like I want to say so that if there's one person who remembers it forever, changes their behavior, you know, that's great. And so like the whites voting under 30, my thing to that is your parents were also once hippies. So remember that they were, you know, tie-dye shirts, living their best life, and they're now voting conservative. When they pass you the throne of assets, and you're right, there's this really matters and is a big responsibility, and like your life happiness matters, but also realize that you're in control when you get to their age, right? This is my decades instead of days.
Yeah.
My other big thing, I think the really big issue is that Black and brown people don't believe because now we make money that we are going to solve the problem, right? We'll just be like other countries, and classism is the real problem. And we have the responsibility as we start making money and moving to nicer places or sending our kids to whatever schools we choose to. We also can choose between trying to be like colonizers and trying to bring up your culture.
Yeah.
So we also have that responsibility as we think decades instead of days. Immigrants, that's another one. I think the immigrant story is as Asian Americans grow, the fastest growing voting bloc, as they grow, I think what's really hard is you have immigrants of color, and then you have the Native Americans and Black Americans who were brought to America, not because, or like Native Americans were here, Black Americans were brought here. Like that culture difference is so huge. So like immigrants are more likely to build billion-dollar companies, more likely to take advantage of all the wealth jobs in America than Black and Native American kids. And so the immigrant story issue is when you think of the American story, you think of white men and you think of white success. And so I understand the pressures. I see it with my grandpa who, you know, came here wanting to be more like what you dreamed of. And that doesn't have to be the case either. So those are all things that, I just feel like have to say on the pod, I'm saying more and more to my friends, like keeping us accountable as it's our little actions that we choose as we get older and older. Because I know you're under 30 today, Jimmy.
Yeah.
But,
Only got one more pod after this until I'm not under 30.
yeah, then we become, I guess we're just radio now.
Yeah.
Me and you.
You ready to move into wins and losses?
Let's do it.
My loss, did you know that the garbage pickup schedule in Fort Worth changed this week? Because our entire area of the neighborhood didn't.
I have no idea when ours is anymore.
Yeah, ours went from Thursday to Wednesday, and around like 5 p.m. yesterday, we're recording this on Friday. About 5 p.m. yesterday, I'm like, man, like it's kind of weird that neither of them have come yet. And I kind of like look up and down the street, and everybody's trash cans are still out. Neither side of the street's been touched. So I Google, oh, surprise, trash thing was rescheduled. I'm like, then I look back, I found a Star Telegram story from maybe like Monday that said, hey, this week, trash schedules are changing. How can you change that without telling anybody?
Yeah.
How is there not a flyer in every single mailbox saying, hey, there's a new trash schedule. This is your new day. I consume more of this stuff than like the vast majority of people, and I had no idea.
Yeah. So
I called in a missed pickup, and they were like, oh, did you put your trash cans out? I was like, yeah, I put my trash cans out. So yeah, if you were confused this week too, make sure to go to Fort Worth Garbage and Recycling, type in your address, and find out when your new day is.
Big facts. And I don't know what my new day is. And now it's raining outside. I got ready trash.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, struggling.
I like hate our subcontractors too for that, because our recycling, the truck that comes through and takes our recycling drops our recycling bin in the middle of our driveway every time. No matter how far away I put it, I've put it 25 feet away from our driveway, and the dude just picks it up and drops it right in the middle of our driveway. I've tried everything. I'm like, I call up there. I'm like, you guys like need to tell this guy to stop doing this. Like, I'm literally going to slash his tires as he comes through one of these days. Clearly, and then he doesn't empty it half the time. I got lots of problems with garbage and recycling here.
It sounds like we're coming for them.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna show up, whole squad, whole 817 pod. Yeah. Next meetup, right in front of your dumpster. My loss, I guess I'll go with something simple. I guess I'll just go with the Tarrant County going red. It's not exciting to take the throne again for being the largest Republican county. So that's my loss.
Yeah.
What's your win?
My win.
It's kind of the opposite.
Yeah, kind of the opposite. Even though Tarrant County voter turnout was down from 2018, we still greatly outpaced Texas. And I'll say, like,
that's crazy, by the way.
47% versus 31% statewide. Like, to me, that's a big win for a city and county that have constantly been known for not showing up to vote. And I would still say we didn't show up to vote. Less than half of registered voters did. But the fact that we outpaced Texas as a state so much, I think is a win for the community here.
Yeah. And remember, right, we just got to keep voting. It's one of Stacey Abrams' things that I always love that she says. It's like medicine. Like you have to take it every day, and you don't feel why or what, but you just got to take it every day. And same with voting. My win, my win will go to Lisa Simmons, who keeps Tarrant County Commissioner seat blue with a victory in Precinct 2. I wish all of these, the Tarrant 4 would have made it. They did great fights. We need more of that. Hopefully they inspire more people to run. Maybe one of them run. I don't know if y'all live in District 11. Come on now. Keep doing all this great work. So shout out to Elisa Simmons.
Well, there it is. Thanks everyone for listening.
We're gonna be out for a while.
Well, we got one more, and then we're going to be out for like 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, this holidays, what I realized, I have traveled more this year due to, like, I guess, being stuck at home for the pandemic. I don't know. I'm like, man, I'm doing everything.
Yeah.
So we're going to be out of the pod for like 3 weeks between, like, after these next 2 shows and then, like, December 18th? Like, between there.
Yeah.
We'll have another one, but that's kind of the stop. So maybe you can catch up on some of the other ones.
Yeah.
Because some of the things I said today, I said, like, 18 months ago.
Yeah.
So, awesome. Well, thank you, Jimmy, for being here. It looks like you got to figure out how to stay dry. And
again, thanks everyone for coming out to Dryce
awesome.
on Monday. Inspired us to try and get something else organized for sure.
yeah. Peace.